Motion pictures were barely a decade old when color first appeared on the silver screen. But hand-painting a film frame by frame would be only a bridge between a gray world and the rainbow. The scientific principles of color have been known since Isaac Newton, said Dr. Herbert Kalmus. Engineering know-how will help us solve the practical problems. In 1916, he founded Technicolor, the name derived from his MIT yearbook, Technique. A Pullman rail car housed the company's first film laboratory. Using this camera, which exposed 2 frames of film at the same time, one sensitive to red, the other green, Kalmus shot the first Technicolor film, 1917's The Gulf Between. Results were disappointing, but 5 years later, Technicolor would come to Hollywood. To make the toll of the sea, Technicolor investor Joseph Schenck offered Dr. Kalmus his studio, Metro, his star, Anna May Wong, and his director, Chester Franklin, free of charge. It paid off. The film, and most of all Technicolor, were a hit. This glorious restoration was done by Robert Gitt of the UCLA Film and Television Archive. He can demonstrate the 2-color process better than anyone.
The Technicolor camera photographed the original scene through a red filter and a green filter on black and white film. And actually, color wasn't really added back into the image until the final printing process.
In the 20s, the major studios employed 2-color Technicolor as a brief special effect, like this sequence in the original Ben-Hur. After a few minutes, audiences noticed what colors weren't present, but Dr. Kalmus wasn't through yet. In 1934, the Academy had no appropriate category, so it awarded La Cucaracha Best Comedy Short. Everyone knew the real winner was Technicolor. To create full color, Dr. Kalmus added a 3rd negative, one sensitive to the blue spectrum. Rolling 3 strips of film simultaneously required an enormous and heavy camera, made even larger by a soundproofing encasement.
I think people were really frightened of Technicolor for many years. And those who weren't frightened of it were the audience, because Technicolor was a huge selling point. When a film was in Technicolor, it was, oh my God, it's so lifelike.
Until now, said Becky Sharp director Ruben Mamoulian, the moving picture industry has been like an artist allowed only to use pencil or charcoal. Now Technicolor has given us paints. Just as important, the company had perfected a processing method called imbibition dye transfer, or the physical imprinting of film with color dyes. The color saturation could be customized for each film.
When you print the colors, it's literally just dyes soaked into a gelatin image and then pressed onto the final print film that goes out to the theaters.
So Technicolor provided the camera, an on-set assistant, and processed the film. But it didn't end there.
Starting in the mid-30s, it was mandatory, it was part of the contract, that if somebody rented a Technicolor camera to use in their film, they had to take Natalie Kalmus.
Divorced from the company founder since 1921, Natalie Kalmus kept her hooks in the business, running the color advisory service. Her only salvation? Having talent. Natalie would color coordinate each scene of every Technicolor film.
They then shot that on film to see how the colors would play against each other. If it didn't, then they'd put together a new schematic for that scene.
Although perfected, Technicolor was not an easy sell. In addition to the large cameras, it required a wilting amount of light. In 1938, Max Factor introduced a makeup designed specifically for Technicolor. Soon, pancake makeup became a commercial success as well. That same year, a higher-speed film came out, reducing the lighting requirement by half, and first used on Technicolor's crowning achievement. We said the dye transfer process allows greater flexibility in how a film's color is printed. MGM-UA's George Feltenstein says this print of Gone with the Wind comes closest to the original Technicolor vision of producer David O. Selznick.
When we did our 50th anniversary restoration from the original Technicolor negative, the Selznick sons supervised that restoration to try to make it look as close to their father's Technicolor print from the Selznick family library as they could.
As great an endorsement of Technicolor as Gone with the Wind was, many big stars remained skeptical or just felt they photographed better in black and white. Enter the Technicolor stars.
I hope that means that everyone is glad to see the lady in the tutti frutti hat.
Try imagining Carmen Miranda with black and white fruit, or Esther Williams emerging from a colorless pool. Betty Grable made 27 features before Technicolor made her #1. Lucille Ball dyed her hair red and earned the name Technicolor Tessie. Other rainbow sensations included Maureen O'Hara and Maria Montez.
Of all the directors that worked with Technicolor, Minnelli is one of my favorites because he was a painter, he was an artist, and he had such a sense of color and hue and lighting and shading. And when you look at Meet Me in St. Louis, when you look at how exquisitely Judy Garland is photographed when she's singing The Boy Next Door, it's one of the most beautiful moments of color photography ever put on film.
The boy next door.
From the beginning, it had been the industry's goal to convert from a 3-strip to a single-strip negative. In 1949, Eastman Kodak made that possible. Soon, smaller black and white cameras loaded with the new color film began appearing all over Hollywood. So did new processors like Warner Color, Ansco Color, and Deluxe. But 40 years since this grand camera rolled for the last time, one name still dominates the field: Technicolor. That's because no one could process film better than Technicolor. Still, the arrival of television shrunk print orders as thousands of movie theaters closed. Technicolor discontinued its costly dye transfer process. 1974's The Godfather Part 2 marked the end of an era. No wonder when director Martin Scorsese saw this 1994 headline, he called it the best news for American movies in 40 years. Technicolor was announcing tests that could spell the return of dye transfer, attributable in part to the multiplexing of America.
A typical average order today for motion picture prints is likely to be in the range of 1,600 to 1,800 prints, and it's now become much more economically viable to do this in the dye transfer mode.
And I think it's kind of unique that there aren't many businesses that, as we like to say, look back for their future.
All you have to do is go to a revival theater when there is a rare showing of an archival Technicolor print, and the audience gasps. Technicolor was promoting itself as being lifelike in the early days. Well, it really wasn't. It was greater than life. Life should only look like Technicolor looks.
For AMC in Hollywood, I'm Peter Jones.